need to display something else.
Okay. We're going to go on to the consent agenda. It's approval of the minutes, bills payable, credit card statement of activity.
We want to happen if it's right for us on the screen. Just
Like,
figure it out.
on TV, we gotta get on here. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda if there's no objection or amendments.
I'll move.
Okay. There's motion to approve the consent agenda with Skelding seconding. Any comments or discussion?
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes,
Dunn.
Yes. Next is communications. We'll go to board communications received. Start with you, Joni.
Yes, I am going to reference my phone. I received a set of questions from a community member, and I'd just like to share those here. I have passed them along to Mitch and Matt, but I just passed these along with probably in the last 90 minutes, so they may not have had a chance to fully formulate a response. But the question was, do assistant coaches and alumni coaches receive training like the teachers do to work with kids, including things like sexual or like abuse, sexual harassment, etc.? Does the school do background checks on these coaches, particularly volunteers or basically any adult working with our kids, including like the alumni coaches that might come in and some of those positions? And then other organizations have upped their game regarding these and wondering if, when thinking about our non-salary staff at MP, if we're working to make sure that these are safe adults that are interacting with our students. So not an expression necessarily of that anything's wrong, but asking, are we keeping up with the times? And I thought that was a really reasonable question and one we should make sure we've reviewed recently. So.
I'll get a response for you, so then you can certainly forward that on
Will
for
do.
any of these concerns. But we do offer trainings. We do, any of our coaches go through first aid, those kinds of things. Any coach that is paid by the district is responsible for also taking any kind of rules exam. And non-staff coaches have to take, it's the National Federation of High School Athletics. There's like an exam that they have to take and pass in order to be eligible to coach. Most teachers don't have to take that programming because it's also part of kind of the educational programming that you go through. But we'll get answers to all those questions and send them out to you.
I appreciate that.
Yep, you bet.
That was the only one that I had.
I had communication around the elementary school parking lot and the high school parking lot. So it was mostly actually just follow up from last year about like, what have we done and everything. And one kind of good thing that's happened down there in the last week or so is that the neighbor to the elementary school across Cawthorn Street of the exit of the parking lot put in an extra gravel driveway. So they're actually parking their vehicles off of the street now. And that's really cleared up all the traffic before and after school, which is great. The individual expressed concern about lighting in the high school parking lot, but I relayed that that's on the list, the short list of improvements we'll go over tonight. There was a question we had sort of committed as an administration to making a video with a drone over the elementary school parking lot to sort of show the stuff, and they wondered where that was, and I said I would check in on that tonight.
Mr. Engel and I have had several conversations about that, so it's not anything that's been pushed to a back burner. It's something that we're trying to get addressed so that we can get that out and available for everybody.
Great, that's all I had.
Yeah, I had two. They were in-person conversations at the elementary school, so just I pick up my kids there. They were both about the chips on the playground. They're tire chips, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So one was about the health concerns, and the other was about how dirty they were. I passed that on and be considered as part of the long-term.
I didn't have anything that rose to the level of bringing it here.
And sorry, I had one last thing.
Yeah.
there was a lot of positive feedback around the high school musical. So I talked to several people. It's just been some time now since
Uh-huh.
we've met, but just really, and I attended myself and I thought it was great. So I just wanted to congratulate them and, you know, people in the community that aren't necessarily associated with the school, but went to it were really, really impressed.
Great.
I guess my own board communication, I've had a chance tonight and then a couple days over break to just be in the halls a little bit. And I don't know if it's the Kindness Club or who is putting all of the Post-its on the lockers with the positive messages, but it was impactful for me to walk by and read. So I'm certain the fact that most of them are still on the lockers mean they're impactful for the students. So I don't know who's doing that, but it's fantastic.
Part of our activity on the career day. Perfect. For the activity. Great. Mitch and I had our second meeting with the city and the chamber. Basically kind of gave them an update of where we're at with our referendum timeline. We talked a little bit about the elementary school parking lot flow and Cawthorn and continuing that coordination. We talked about how we're trying to expand our like youth apprenticeships and, you know, just sharing with the chamber that if any businesses had opportunities or interest in connecting with students that we could arrange that. And then we also just talked about the new TID district and housing development plans from the city and how the school felt about attracting more families and more schools, especially given our conversations about, oh, we don't have an extra classroom to do this, or we don't have space in the high school for storage, you know, how can we take on new students? And we basically helped clarify that, you know, at least at the high school level, we've got plenty of space to take on more students. And then at the other levels, we talked about how, you know, we want to make sure our student body is, if not growing, at least sustainable, given the fact that, you know, birth rates are going down across the country, including in our area. So we certainly welcomed any new families moving to town. We also pointed out that a lot of our open enrolled families would like to move into town if there was housing available. So that wouldn't necessarily create a net increase in the number of students, but they would want to be in the district. So plus, you know, if we got a large infusion of students, that would be an infusion of revenue that could allow us to expand. You know, we've got space at both campuses if we needed to do that. So bottom line was bring on the students and the families and build as much housing as you need to accommodate them. So that was our conversation. Okay. Moving on to information for discussion.
Citizen comment.
Citizen comment. Thank you. Do we have anyone signed up? Okay. Anyone in the room or online want to make a comment? You can use your raise the hand icon. We'll call on you. Going once, going twice. Okay. Thanks, Mitch. Okay. Now I believe we're ready for the info agenda. So did you want to start with reports from the building administrators?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've asked them to kind of combine, you know, anything that they'd wish to share in addition on kind of the report card information. They can do it at the same time. So I don't know if you drew straws or if you want to start elementary and work your way up. Come on up, Mr. Ingwell.
Yeah. So everyone should have got, I did print out some extra just in case you don't, some reports from the last 3 years based on the report card. So you can kind of compare, the second line I put on there for each, one is the states on the report card you see, about 2. Biggest thing is our overall score. This year, for 20 223 for last year, I should say, was 77.3. Obviously the biggest thing for me is kind of looking into more information from that, digging into achievement growth numbers as well too. So again, I kind of showed across the board, even for I put on there for chronic late attendance rate as well too at the bottom row. And overall, I said 77.3 the last year. The 21-22 was 77.1, and 2021 was the 86.4 overall score. And each one is broken down into categories as well too. So overall, again, I'm super proud of where we're at. Again, we're still working on a lot of main things that we're overall to improve on. Some key things obviously is we're in the year 2 of our benchmark. So we're still unpacking a lot of that. There's a ton of information, teaching strategies in that. And so again, we're trying to really work on supporting staff on their teaching strategies, working on, again, improving what that looks like. Kind of looking at strategies of helping each other across grade levels to really work on what their teaching style looks like for what the benchmark overall program is trying to promote, and kind of dig in more and more and more. There's so many resources online. Even a couple of times I've done the Zoom on myself of this training. There's so many things available. Again, just getting staff to keep digging more in. A lot of times it's like a 3 to 5 year, really kind of getting the part of honing in on their strategies they're working on, and also trying to look at overall number-wise of where their students are and supporting students across the board where they are. So again, our biggest goal is really looking at supporting staff on digging deeper into benchmark and helping with teaching strategies to kind of really look at how their instructional work looks like, and supporting that idea to help all the students across the board. Overall, I said our numbers I feel are great. Again, we are really looking at trying to continue that process of assessing the numbers, seeing where we're at, seeing what the trends are, kind of, again, keep looking at obviously math as well too, but kind of look at those trends of what's going on and where are we identifying that we need to work more on. So, questions?
And for anyone listening at home, benchmark is the curriculum itself. Benchmark can be an assessment. Somebody say, well, what's the benchmark? It's assess. The benchmark is the curriculum as well that they're using in that reading language arts component at the elementary school.
How granular do you guys get in like the data to help you kind of look at?
So we look at that, and then
the growth and achievement for ELA.
Well, the key thing is I really look more on the growth and achievements to see where we're at, but then kind of look at that compared to our STAR data, and also then into our FastBridge data as well too, to kind of not just look at one key thing, but look at multiple data points to kind of see where we're going. And again, after the Christmas break, we'll come in round 2 for our second round of testing, which will be crucial on where we're looking at for the STAR and FastBridge, which will be really helpful overall.
So Tom, what are we, when is the test? This comes out of a test, this data? Or?
Yes, that's the spring test.
Okay, so this was taken last spring.
Yes.
So with the score, there's sort of the big drop from 2020 to 2021. And then the sort of steady, is that, what would you say that's a result of, the big drop from 2020 to 2021 to the kind of dropping to 2021, 22?
And if you dig into the data more, obviously some of the area weights change as well too from there. So each year changes based on priority groups where the data is coming from, but it also changes as well. So again, I really look at where those growths are and the achievement scores, which those also affect the overall score as well too. So again, I try to dig in more into the other scores as more as a indicator from there. Now, I know Matt and everybody else are a little more knowledgeable based on years of digging into the report card than I am. So I can usually ask Matt and everybody else like what that is and how that really looks overall from there. So.
And I think a portion, sometimes, you're moving on one group and bringing in a new group too. So sometimes that makes a little bit of a difference in the scores building wide.
Yeah.
Timing wise, the nation dropped because of during COVID and all
Right.
of that. I mean, there's lower test participation.
Right.
Is there, I have a question, Mitch, about, we have a contract with CISA 3 for, it's like $5,000 for school improvement services.
Mhm.
Is that where they cover like the data dig or whatever it's called, where they break it all down and look for insights? That's something that could be, that gets provided
Yes,
through that contract?
yes.
Okay.
We did go to one.
Okay.
And actually, I think last year, that was like a couple years ago, that was how Matt Renwick and his team found that we needed that reading curriculum.
Yeah.
That was what we did this fall to identify the math needs at the middle school. Those have been done kind of ongoing.
Yeah, because the metrics behind like how they calculate achievement and growth are complex. I just wanted to make sure you were taking advantage of some of your
Yes. And as Tom had said, that the admin team was at Fenimore at CISA earlier this year for one of those particular meetings to get into the data.
It was like in January, do we understand more around the data and like the data's telling us we should focus on, or?
That'll be our second round of STAR and Asperger's testing. We'll have from there, but then we'll do our spring state test in spring. We'll have a third round STAR and Asperger's before the school out.
That's the hardest part with the forward exam. It's last year in the spring, you don't get the information until the fall of this year. So some of those groups have moved on. Sometimes students are in and out, all those kinds of things. But yeah, they'll be excuse me, at the end of the semester, they'll be doing another round of STAR testing, which is kind of based on the data that was presented at the beginning of the year. Here's kind of where our scores were. There's a correlation between the STAR testing and the state forward exam, but they'll be coming back again with kind of a mid-year. How are we doing? Where did we start and where are we right now? So they'll be coming back with more.
Do we do a course correction, or make adjustments on what we're doing the second half of the year? If those mid-year results, don't indicate we're moving in the direction we want to move.
Question. So the key thing was we're still digging into the reading curriculum. So the key is looking at what is our teaching strategies and what do we need to focus on within that curriculum overall. The data obviously then pulls from there to see, obviously in a trend for a new program, usually that first couple of years is a kind of a drop just because we're getting into different strategies of how we teach. So again, we're exposing kids to different things on their grade level. But typically based on that, there's always a small dip, which then hopefully again, identifying where we're at and what strategies we need to fix can help us bring our numbers back up.
Does the benchmark have like embedded formative assessments for teachers along the way?
So there's a ton of different resources from there. So many resources, it's almost challenging for teachers to get into and dig into.
That's where you do like mini course corrections in your class. Like there's that formative piece and the interim, which is STAR, and then the curriculum.
And that's what then digs into our win time. So again, if students are testing low, then our win times are addressed to that support as well too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we work together.
Course correction. Sometimes depending where we are in the curriculum, we haven't gotten to something yet, especially if it's math, and it follows that scope and sequence. So looking at the data where we can see the skill breakdown, if we haven't taught it yet, it's just, one of those things that we won't be getting to that specifically for math. So our goal continues to be to improve instruction across the grade levels for all students in math and reading. And to do this, we looked at our benchmark assessments for STAR and for FastBridge. And those were the scores and the goals that I shared with you earlier. So we're really focusing on the standards, because if we can hit these standards and we can show growth and that they're secure within our students, then we'll see that progress on our state report cards. So we're not really teaching to the forward test, we're teaching our standards. and making sure that they understand those and how to apply those in different contexts. So overall, we've drilled down to those 3 key domains, and we have key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge, and we're explicitly teaching these right now, gathering articles for our teachers. They're assessing these and keeping track of where students are on these standards, and then reassessing, because first assessment is more just where are we? We teach the skill again, and it's one that continues to come up. It's not a one and done, it'll keep coming up. And then it will also be going into our content areas as well. So we're continuously looking at these. We noticed that on our STAR assessment, these were our lowest standards. So that's why we targeted these standards. Also with these tests, we've identified those students who need more support in getting those students the interventions that they need for reading and math. Also, when we can bring in these standards when they fit, to keep giving them an extra dose of that instruction. The other thing is we've been looking at our math curriculum and always looking for how can we keep improving in math as well. So we've had vertical alignments, actually it was 512. We had some incredible conversations about each standard, where it's taught, how explicitly it's taught, where it's assessed. And it was really eye-opening to see that we may want to be looking at a new curriculum to meet all of these changes. We haven't looked at a new math curriculum for 7 years. So a lot of great conversations have come out with this, especially when we can relate it back to our testing that we have and have that support that you might need something more updated. So we've had those conversations, and we also have had some Zooms with some different curriculums to see what curriculum would we use. Our high school math teachers have had wonderful success with the curriculum they're using. So looking at what would that look like if we went that same one at the middle school. And then our teachers just went to Barneveld on Wednesday. Barneveld has scored high on their state report cards. So we went not only to look at what curriculum they were using, but also to look at instructional strategies that are being used. And then teachers came back to debrief about that. So about that visit. So lots of different pieces in motion, but definitely continuing to keeping an eye on the standards and how they're doing, looking at our curriculum, and if there's changes that need to be, we'll keep impacting, play those forward. High school curriculum? Big ideas.
Big idea.
Middle schools and high schools usually have different curriculums.
It really depends.
Yeah, it kind of depends on structure. A lot of work to go into that conversation still. Just some of that time on Wednesdays for those math teachers to kind of dig into. A lot of that time coming up to continue to dig into that, maybe pilot something here in the spring is what we're looking at, just to kind of forward. Yes, maybe this isn't what we want to go. Maybe we don't want to go with this.
To a non-admin person, school administrative person, like what do you mean, like just like how things are taught?
Yeah, just so the structure is the same, and so the structure of the lessons and the work is the same, and then also the vocabulary, and just so everything is more cohesive through. So the kids aren't, because when they come from elementary ends at.
Well, it goes
through sixth grade, but we want to make sure that we're, kind of going along with the same plan. So that curriculum down there ends, doesn't go up through high school. So we can't continue to use that through high school. Otherwise, if we could, we probably would K-12.
So are we potentially shopping for a new curriculum? Okay, and do we have some best practices from the process that the elementary school went through in selecting that reading curriculum that we could apply to selecting the math curriculum for And from a budget perspective, what fiscal year or budget year would we be looking at purchasing a new curriculum in?
Next,
Okay,
it would come under the 24-25 budget
Okay.
year.
and is that a 6-digit expense? Oh, I just don't have a point of reference,
25.
like mid fives.
Yeah.
We're talking like 20,000, 50,000, 70,000. I want a range.
Just ask.
We're talking about like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math curriculum. I think we're probably pushing in that 60 to 70 for all of the materials, all of the online opportunities, the hard copies, anything that comes with it.
And so you said 6th, 7th, 8th, but we're talking 6 through 12.
Right, so,
Correct.
so we go with big ideas. It doesn't change a ton from the high school. other than
Oh.
it updates it.
Okay,
It updates
would
the year,
get an
but they would get some updated books and stuff.
okay,
I did get a quote for the high school, just to update the high school for the next 7 years. It was 28,
okay.
somewhere in that realm. So if you added in the middle school, 28 for the total. You can, sometimes they'll let you break that up per year, they'll let you. So that was for the 6 years total. Which is in the last 10 years, it's roughly cost. I looked at previous one.
And we've been pretty creative when it comes to some of those agreements saying, yeah, can we split this payment up over 3 years? So instead of $20,000,
Yeah.
now we might spread that out over 3 years, and we're still getting all the resources and materials right out of the gate. So we do things like that whenever we can as well to try to spread that budget hit out and make it a little bit easier to absorb.
Thank you.
Anything else from the middle school? So high school wise, we're continuing to work on that reading skill of main idea, supporting details, really looking at that in the classes as we focus on moving forward. We looked through, and Brooke and I have sat down, we've looked through the data in that state report card. Honestly, I think we should celebrate how well our teachers are doing, how well our students are doing. And I will tell you, and Mr. Steger's sitting over there, and he'll be the first one to tell you too, we don't settle. We always want to keep working and trying to do better, which is why we run our ACT boot camp a little different each year, why we do some things throughout the year to make sure that we're continuing to move forward. We have our practice ACT coming up this Friday for our juniors. So we're starting that process already, which is hard to believe because it feels like it should be the first day of school still. It's kind of flown by. But, we don't settle for, okay, here we're at, which we're doing really well as a high school, as a middle school, as an elementary school. But really working towards how can we do even better? Just little steps towards that. And part of that's that reading goal. Part of that's looking at curriculum, 6th through 12th grade. But really working with the teachers and supporting them and how to get the best out of our students. So looking at that report card, honestly, we're doing awesome. We really are. We need to applaud the teachers and the students for doing so well. In my personal opinion, I have some numbers. I know Mitch kind of shared the district stuff. I'm going to share out just kind of the high school real quick, CISA. And we typically look at achievement because that's the same for everybody, or that pie chart kind of changes every time you get a new state report card. Those percentages change. So it's kind of hard to look at that overall score when the target changes every time for us. But if we look at achievement here, in CISA, we were number 1 in achievement, 3rd in English, 1st in math. Similar size schools, 170 to 300 students, we're in the top 10%. And then in all high schools in the state, we were in the top 13% for achievement. So really great job by our students, our staff, our community supporting us that way. Brooke has the middle school ones too. You want to read them there?
Yes, we have, for statewide, we're top 16. For similar sized schools, top 19. In our CISA, grades 5 through 8, we're number 2. And then achievement in our ELA, number 2, and then in math, 5th.
Really working to obviously always improve on those numbers. Any questions?
Only that it seems strange that we're lower ranked in math when our achievement score in math is objectively higher than our achievement score in ELA at the elementary level, but I believe that held true across all three schools. I'm not looking at the numbers, but
Lower
Our- so we were ranked fifth in math
out of all the schools.
out of all the
Like
schools,
CISA.
Yep.
but our math score compared to our English score, our math scores are higher, right?
At the middle school level, I'm not. I think ELA was higher. than
Was it?
middle
Okay.
school. Math was, yep, and math for the high school was ranked. Was it? CISA was number one, in English we were number 3.
Okay.
Last year we were number, I think, 1, and again, it varies just a point here, so not very far off.
Thank
And
you.
that is comparing every score, right? So it's just comparing just the math across those districts, so. But yeah, neat to see. It helps us reach out to people and see how they're doing. Gain a little advantage here and there, and just, I've had some conversations with people, they know what our ACT score was, and I've had conversations like, what are you doing there? And it's like, oh, we got great teachers at boot camp. So, it helps us, it helps our kids, or it seems to help our kids. We're getting almost 2 points when we do that. We're pretty fortunate.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Board election timeline.
So the notice for non-candidacy for any current board member is up, and there are 3 seats up for election this year. And non-candidacy paperwork must be filed no later than Friday, December 22nd at 5 p.m. in the district office. And the deadline for any candidates, including incumbents, to file all documents to be eligible for the spring ballot is Tuesday, January 2nd at 5 p.m. Well, anybody in the audience, anybody in the community, if they're interested in running, you need to get your paperwork turned in by January 2nd, Tuesday, January 2nd by 5 p.m. Same thing for any current board members, any of the 3 board members.
Questions about that? Okay, budget comparison.
In your board package, you have the budget comparisons from November of 22, where we expended about 34.8% of our budget. In November of 23, we have spended 33.4% of our budget. Again, very comparable. If you're looking at dollars, we have spent just a little bit less, but 130,000 less this year at this point in time compared to last year at this time. So again, kind of tracking our expenses. It's trending in the right direction, at least.
Any questions about the budget comparisons? Okay, thank you. Operations committee report. I'm assuming the minutes will be approved at the January meeting.
Correct.
Plan. Yeah. Yeah. Chair Skelding, do you want to give us a brief summary?
Yeah, so in operations, we had 4 overall agenda items. First one is we get tasked Mr. Austin to kind of deliver a blue sky plan for this building. So Matt really came through with a really impressive list of items that he wants to do short-term, long-term, but then also a visual showing increases in square footage that would highlight new tech ed/ag wing, fitness center, storage, multi-purpose rooms, wrestling rooms, just a lot of good creative ideas to upgrade the facilities we have, but also give more opportunities to kids in the future. So the next step with that is Mr. Austin was gonna talk with a design firm just to start to build some kind of high level budgetary estimates of what something like that would cost us. Then we can keep that conversation moving and kind of see where we want to go with, the topic of referendums in the future. And then we had Fund 46 priorities, 10-year plan, and kind of the top 5 for next year. And I know we'll talk through that in the action items. But the top 5 to do in the short term, the priority was really based on safety. So Mitch will talk through that. We had Kimmy from Taher come in and talk through, do we stay with Taher? Do we look at a different solution? As we do have to RFP this year for the food service program. Talk through pros and cons of switching away from Taher. Seems to be a lot of pros, I would say, potential positive impact to kind of the cost structure of the program, but also just more freedom in what we can offer the students. So the recommendation was to put the RFP on hold right now, and do some more analysis on what bringing it in-house would look like in terms of cost and program, et cetera. And then talked around the elementary playground plan. So Mr. Ingwell came in, talked through things he wants to do, areas of concern, such as areas that continually don't grow in grass, chips, dirty, need to be replaced. So Mr. Ingwell agreed to reach out to some playground design consultants and start to get some estimates like high, medium, low, just to give us an understanding of what it would cost to update based on the wish list.
Justin, is there any opportunity to, my understanding, I could be totally wrong, is that we purchased the land up above the playground from Chase Ivy? And I don't know if there's any plans for that space. Is there any opportunity to incorporate that land in a playground solution? Just given that it's, I know there's a hill, but it's adjacent to the playground and it's just sort of sitting there.
Member Johnston had talked about like some natural playscape pieces maybe going in there along that hill and allowing, other than, the plastic wrap metal playground equipment that we currently have, having some other things, that kids can explore and engage in. And so those are some of the things we would potentially be looking at that hillside.
Okay.
I also recommended we get a snow machine that we could just have a snow sledding hill right there. Then they wouldn't kill the grass over on the other part. No, but I mean, that's some of the natural playscapes along that hillside is something that has been discussed several times.
Okay. And do we own the land up on top though, where it flattens out?
All the way up to the fence line,
The yards of the,
those yards of those crabby people that live up.
no.
Yeah.
So it's a substantial, piece.
A little bit, probably a little bit shy of 2 acres.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There were 3 lots there. The southernmost lot was sold at one point in time, and I think there maybe has been some backing out of that. But we own the 2 lots, the middle lot and the northern lot. So
Yeah.
the school district basically caught on to, there is a storage garage area there that we use to the best of our ability. We pack it pretty full for equipment and things like that. But yes, those 2 lots are attached to school district property and we own those.
That was it for operations.
But just to dovetail on the food service, so there will be no board action taken at this meeting, but we've asked for like a side-by-side presentation of what we're currently paying, pros and cons of sticking with our current food vendor versus, estimated budget, if we kept it in-house and kind of did some side-by-side, talked about pros and cons, and then we would make a formal motion to direct Mitch to either pursue in-house or not and go to RFP to get bids for a new vendor. I think is that going to be coming in January, right, Mitch? Or are we going to do a follow-up committee meeting?
Okay, well, you have returned to work on January 2nd, which is a Tuesday. January 3rd would be your committee nights and the board meetings the following Monday. So
Okay.
we can certainly try to put something together. And if that were the plan, to have a operations committee meeting there, at least get that information in front of the board.
Okay,
That probably is doable.
cool, thanks. Sorry,
Yep.
go ahead.
That was it for operations.
Any questions for Justin on that report?
Question about, and I apologize, that I couldn't attend. In terms of the pros and the cons, did you look at like nutritional content and things like that? Or we're just talking about the operational aspect of how can we get food to our kids efficiently as possible? I'm just curious what would go into that report.
We mainly just talked about menu flexibility, which would allow for a wider variety of, higher quality, better nutritional products, and maybe expanding our partnership with local vendors and local farmers that would hopefully improve the quality, nutritional value up. But no, we didn't get into the weeds
Okay.
of specific items. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit. I mean, Tahar, we just kind of get the commodity items from them, but with,
The tavern menu.
right, with like a local program, I think we'd have more flexibility to kind of make nutrition a focus.
Harder to, you have to chop stuff.
Right.
It's different than taking it out of the box.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. Just curious. Curious and invested.
Mhm.
Curious.
All right, policy.
Yeah, sure.
So first item we had was, 3 library policies, which we'll be doing first reading here after this. So I'll leave that for that. Let's see here. We ran through a Narcan policy, which the committee approved 2-0, which we'll do a first reading of. Same with new member onboarding. We talked about political floats and school-sponsored events. So Mitch is going to draft a example policy for January for us to look at. And then we talked through, kind of an item we've talked through for a while, and that's like, how do we standardize the building level updates? So Aaron and I kind of shared some feedback back and forth via email on like, here's what we want to see to the building principles, or do we want to kind of put it more on them to deliver something based on like 4 criteria that I'll go through, like what is going well in your building, what are some areas for improvement, what goals are you tracking, and the progress on those, with data, and then any other feedback. The intent being that it's quick and easy for you guys to go through, not try to anticipate what we want to hear, and then also not just kind of like also dictate what we want to hear about. We want to, as the leaders of the schools, tell us what's important to you guys, and then how you're tracking to those goals and metrics. Miss anything?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. So you were going to share that with Mitch, and
Yep,
then he
so
was
Mitch
going
has
to share
that.
that with the admin team. Yeah.
I have a question about the naloxone policy. Do we want to wait until we do the first reading of it? Or ask it?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how we got to the point of having this policy in place? Is it just to keep us kind of up to date with the reality that of the world we live in?
It is. And there are trainings available to staff members, the average layperson, for administering Narcan. So it is what the society we live in right now. But in order for anybody to be able to administer Narcan on school property, the school has to have a policy in place that allows that to happen. And basically, we're just kind of following guidelines that we need to, in order to put this in place. We have our nurse is currently trained and can administer that in the need, or in the event that it's ever needed. There is a training on the 14th at the Mineral Point Rescue Squad building. And then Member Johnston had put us in contact with Iowa County Health. And there's the possibility that we could bring somebody in to train more staff members on one of our PD days and kind of make that kind of a rotation of potential PD opportunities on a day, so that if there are some other staff members who wish to get trained in that, we could potentially have more than one individual. That is, you have to be trained in order to be able to administer it. You have to have a policy in order to be able to administer Narcan on school property. So we're just trying to follow the state guidelines.
The state legislature was considering a bill to mandate that every school have this, and the legislative update I went to, they said the bill was likely to fail. But it's at that level where the legislature is about to close to mandating that you have it here. So we would need to have a policy around
Right.
use it.
It's not much different than having an AED in the building. It's a potentially life-saving device. People need to be trained on how to use an AED. It's unfortunate that that's where we are, but being able to administer Narcan, and if you administer, doctor, you could speak to this maybe for me. If you administer Narcan and it wasn't necessarily needed, there are no harmful side effects to administering Narcan to someone. So, but in the event that it's deemed that somebody could be potentially experiencing symptoms from an overdose, being able to administer that sooner is better. It's just another potential life-saving.
I would liken it to an EpiPen.
Okay.
It's an emergency medication that has a kind of a complex delivery system that needs some basic training on how to use it, and it's used only for emergencies. So it's just one more tool in the toolbox that buys you some time until ambulance and paramedics can get here.
Justin, on the other two policy changes, public complaints about instructional learning materials and selection of and adoption of library materials, what was the impetus for bringing those forward? Are these just WASB suggestions, or?
I'm driven by DPI.
Our library media specialist attended a recent training, and that was kind of the guidelines of maybe trying to pull. A lot of school districts have blanket library and instructional together. This is basically the recommendation was to pull those apart so that there would be one policy specific to library materials and another specific to instructional materials that teachers might use in the classroom. So that kind of a combination.
That's good.
That was it for policy. There was one thing I forgot about that we ran out of time in ops committee to talk about, and that was like a summer program like Camp Peck. So we'll talk about that in January, and like how do we gauge to see if there's interest in a program like that? And if there is, then maybe we bring in the leader of Camp Peck and how did they set it up and all that kind of stuff. Since I think we promised to do that last board meeting.
Then for policy committee, we tabled our annual school board work plan to January, and we tabled the reviewing a policy about allowing political entries into school-sponsored events like parades. Those were two issues we didn't get to. Okay.
I don't want to be a thorn in, but regards to
Yeah.
start.
For sure. Yeah. You have a program, you can't staff it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, let's go to the first readings. Mitch, do you want to introduce those?
So sure, there are three policies that were presented. Policy 361.1, and everybody should have a copy, was the selection and adoption of library materials. There was only one minor adjustment in that policy, but it's split it out of we have a policy 361. So again, it was kind of separating, selecting instructional materials versus library materials. So 361.1 basically is specific to picking out library materials. Then there's policy 871. And again, at 871.1, this is they were under one umbrella, so to speak, at one point in time. This separates out instructional learning materials from the public library material, from the library materials. So again, from the meeting and from the DPI, kind of the recommendations that while something might be in a library, it might not be an instructional piece required in a classroom. Others, it might be an instructional book. I think of some of my, All Quiet on the Western Front or The Outsiders or things like that. That was a book specific to a classroom for instruction and not necessarily library material. So policy 871 and 871.1 just basically separate out instructional materials and library materials into two different policies. And then in 871, you have a colored version. So some of the red texts are some of the changes. I think even the title was like classroom instructional learning materials. And I think it just was, we're going to use basically instructional learning materials. And then how the committee is formed for anybody that registers a complaint. And then there is a complaint form that references the fact that individuals need to fill out the complaint form. You need to be a resident of the district. You need to have read the materials. You need to speak specifically to what is it in the book, what specific passage in the book are you concerned with, and it just kind of helps give direction to anybody filing a complaint and any employee of the district. What's the process and procedure to go through in handling something along those lines?
This will be a first reading. So before it officially becomes policy, there'll be a second reading at the January meeting.
Correct. And there were edits that were recommended and included that have been included in the materials in front of you. So it is up and on. Ms. McCoy put those in right away that evening before even leaving the school building.
A lot of the conversations centered around the formation of the appeals committee to hear the complaint and just making sure that it was kind of consistent with both policies depending on the materials being challenged, and that we made sure that there was going to be an odd number so that there could be a majority vote. Any other questions, concerns about these policies for a first reading?
So you could give it approval one at a time or as a whole, all through the policies, approve the first reading.
I move that we approve them as a whole. Do we even vote? It's just
Okay.
oh, okay. All right.
Out of
Under the info agenda.
the line in the instructional learning materials, one student government representative, if age appropriate, was struck from. I'm just curious from the conversation that happened, why did we move away from that? Because I like generally speaking, we want to engage the students and have them be part of our process.
Well, I mean, my recollection is that there was some question about where the student would come from in terms of what grade or what class, and whether there would be any age restrictions on the student participating. For example, if it was a fourth grade book being challenged, would we have a fourth grader on the committee that would have an equal vote as the other adults, or would we have limited to high school? Would it be only student council? And then we kind of stepped back and said, well, how do we value student input here? And we decided that where we valued student input was to make sure that the students had input on what books were available in the libraries at all levels. And we were reassured by both media specialists that they have formal processes in place to get student input to determine what books are available in each library. And we felt like that was the most powerful student input. So we decided instead of trying to figure out how to pick the student, we decided just to go a different route for forming the
It
committee.
also can be kind of a charged environment.
Yep.
And probably
It's
not
a full
necessarily
student
one we
into
want
that.
to put a student in.
What if it's like a tiebreaker?
Oh, yeah. All valid points. I just needed
Probably would.
a little.
Question, yeah. The conversation came up because in one policy, it mentioned a student, in the other policy, it didn't. And so that's how that brought up, like, why we have student in one group, one the other, and then we talked about. We didn't have one at all, so it was struck from one of the policies. Okay, any other questions, concerns? Okay, we'll go to the Narcan policy that we briefly reviewed. Anyone have any further questions, comments? I believe this was taken directly from, a DPI recommended policy.
Correct.
There weren't any concerns out of policy committee, if I recall. Okay, next we'll go to the new member onboarding policy. That was sent out in a separate email a few weeks ago. I took your feedback.
Get in there.
Okay, good. Made a few tweaks and tried to clean it up a little bit and put as many links and references as possible. So obviously the idea is to make it a board policy that we welcome each new school board member in the same way with the same procedures and appropriate training they deserve. Mitch, just for just procedural note, it might be good to link the policies to the agenda of the call. Okay, great. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on or concerns on reviewing that from when it got passed around in email? Again, it's a first reading, so if you didn't have a chance, or if you can't find it in your email, let me know. I can send it out again. In Google Docs or whatever. Okay. Great. We'll go to action items.
So you should have in front of you kind of a list of projects that are part of the Middle Point long-range capital maintenance plan. This would be the fund projects that would be using Fund $46. Member Skelding kind of gave the top 5 priorities. So, and one of them addresses kind of a concern that came out earlier about the lighting in the parking lot. We're looking for replacement bulbs for any of those lights, but in the meantime, we're also looking at trying to get focus on energy in here to kind of give us a proposal on how to switch these lights over to LED lights so we get more energy efficiency and provide adequate lighting outside, and then want to look basically inside as we move forward. But we have an update to the paging system with an estimated price tag of about $60,000. We're looking at 3 district vehicles. We have 3 9-passenger vans. Potential would be to replace 3 of them with 1 9-passenger van, a minivan, and another SUV. District currently has an SUV in its fleet of vehicles, and that vehicle is out multiple times throughout the day, transporting students to and from places, picking students up, taking them home, taking them to job sites for youth apprenticeship and programming opportunities, and moving away from the 9-passenger van. One of the things we did talk about at the committee meeting was to potentially say, if you're going to a conference, you can take either a minivan or an SUV in lieu of paying you mileage for your own personal vehicle. If you choose to use your own personal vehicle, the district will not pay mileage then at that point in time. So some estimates on prices. We have people scouring the Wisconsin surplus list and car dealerships and whatnot, looking for potential vehicles that would fit our needs and trying to get prices around there. One of the things we started last year was the 2 high school science labs. The equipment came from the old high school, so there's probably WH carved in one of those tabletop somewhere in the lab and the bases and basically all of the things that are in those came from the old high school. So we have gas jets that don't all work, sinks that don't drain properly. So we know that we need to update those. So we've had Mr. Stager, Ms. Sincox, and Mr. Austin have gone on some site visits, kind of looking at different labs of school districts around us that have just recently updated them, looking at potential plans. We would need to get a plumber and probably heating cooling guy to help reroute some of the gas lines and things. So we're working on trying to get a total bid for updating the 2 science labs. I think it's highly needed. We've certainly gotten our money's worth out of the equipment transfer. And we have students that go through our school and take every science class we have available. I think it's time we give them an opportunity to have equipment that functions the way it's supposed to. It was brought up, updating the elementary school playground equipment. Mr. Ingwell has been working with the company that we purchased that material from originally. We have a broken slide. So he's been trying to get price quote on replacing the slide, and also then working on maybe, can we add on other pieces of equipment? Can we get equipment in some areas that are more age appropriate to some of our younger students, and then maybe even make the playground even more inclusive and open to more students and community members in the off hours. So he's working on getting some prices for adding some pieces. And then, as I said earlier, the focus on energy. We have someone scheduled to come out and meet with us. Mr. DeVol, our maintenance director, and myself will kind of get that process started. We'll look at changing the lighting in the building and addressing the outside lighting and getting it to LEDs. Hopefully we can get them to give us we can do this in stages and would again make it more budget friendly as we transition over. But all of these would be Fund 46 dollars that we would be trying to look at expending in the very near future, as in hopefully we can line some of these projects up and get them over the summer and get ready for next school year.
Fund 46 has roughly 800K in it right now. Our strategy is to not go below 400K, as it costs 200K to replace both boilers if they ever went out.
Correct.
And then an additional amount for worst case scenario of whatever else could happen.
What do you say, both, like 200 times 2 or 200 total? 200, okay, thank you.
Yeah, 100,000 for each, basically.
And as I think we get estimates in for the top 5, then we look at how much is that total going to be compared to kind of keeping our running balance that we want, and we try to add in some of these other items. It sounds like Dave thinks the water heaters could potentially be fixed, and we might not have to buy new ones. That's TBD right now.
So basically, this list came before you last month, and the recommendation was to bring it back with some of the top issues around safety. And that's what we've done. We came back to the operations committee, and that's through that, the top 5 projects predominantly deal with safety, and would be just looking for board approval for this long-range capital maintenance plan.
Times are hard stop tonight. Sorry.
6:45.
I have time for a story then. When I was in middle school, I don't know if it was
You don't have to go.
when you were in middle school, Andy. Do you remember when the boiler went out at the middle school?
Yes.
It ran out of water overnight and cracked and could have blown up and caught the whole school on fire. So we all went to class at the high school for, it felt like 2 weeks. I don't know if it was actually that long. Well, they got the new boiler installed in middle school. So yeah, we don't want to get that far, but
I think
it does
probably
happen.
in the next 1 to 2 years. I think we're going to have to make a decision if we proactively replace one of them.
Yeah,
And boilers now,
right.
remember the scene at the elementary school, the boiler is about the size of this cabinet right now.
Right.
takes care of the issue, so. And when we had somebody in looking at the current boilers and I was really pushing them hard, it's like, well, so give me your best guesstimate, and he's availability, if one dies, he said if one goes, your second boiler would be able to maintain heat in the building and those kinds of things. But he would be able to, his company would be able to get access to boilers, so we wouldn't hopefully be out for weeks on end while they try to find one and replace one.
They're the same age too, so.
Right. Farming.
And they're original. I mean, they are 28 years old. So, it's one of those things you look at and say, hey, it doesn't owe me any money anymore,
Right.
from the original building project. So
I was also gonna
What you're
say,
saying, if one goes, we have time to replace it while the backup
Yeah.
serves a temporary
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Except
Yeah.
when the other one gets overwhelmed by its new work.
Are they both
Right.
working full capacity right now, or is one literally a backup?
they're both working at full capacity. And how it works is boiler one might work on Monday and Tuesday, and then it might cycle down, and boiler two then kicks in for Wednesday, Thursday. So they're not both running at 100% capacity 5 days a week. They are able to stagger when they work, and sometimes just on the need, it's like, oh, it's super cold outside and it's a Monday. Maybe we're coming back from vacation. They both might fire up to kind of help get the water heaters up and get get the heat pushed out to the building, but they don't both work all day long, every day.
Now, voting on this top 10 list doesn't commit funds to any of these projects right now, correct? It's
Correct.
simply for the sake of Fund 46, we're approving a 10-year tentative strategy on how we're going to spend those funds in a tentative priority order.
Correct. Yeah. This is saying these are the projects we're going to look at taking care of with Fund 46 dollars. Once we get better estimates, better pricing, it would come back for board approval to move forward. So this is just saying, yep, we agree with this list.
So this could be revised in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'll take a motion to approve this 10-year long-range capital maintenance plan using Fund 46 dollars.
I'll make a motion to approve the Fund 46 10-year plan.
I'll second.
And Heisler, any comments?
I have one question about, you were talking about the PE room or the weight room and some other things not part of Fund 46. What fund does that come under?
It comes out of a referendum fund. So that's a good point. These are capital maintenance. So these are like
Stuff we gotta
ongoing
do no matter what.
stuff we got to do to kind of just keep the school going.
Yeah.
The other is like our master plan to upgrade this campus based on the long-term needs we have, like storage and space and extra wants and needs from a facility standpoint, weight room being one of them, et cetera. So
I'm sure I understood that.
yeah, so separately, we're putting together kind of a master plan design and maybe getting an overall quote for that if we were to go to like a capital referendum and maybe divide it up into phases, or it's the very beginning of that kind of a conversation. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Vote.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes,
Harris,
yes,
Heisner,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next we'll vote on the second reading of the school board norms that were reviewed at the last meeting. Is that the October meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I'll take a motion to approve these as board policy. We can have discussion if needed.
I'll move.
Okay, Harris, Bergstrom. And just to summarize, we've had some just operational norms on how we prepare for and attend and deal with board meetings, and then also with some basic behavioral norms based on the same CASEL framework used to guide expectations for staff and students.
Will a policy number be assigned to these when they are incorporated into our?
Yes, yeah, we'll
Okay.
look at our policy book and determine a numbering system as to where it fits best.
Would it possibly be an addendum to our board, with like a board ethics policy?
It could
Potentially.
very well go there, yes.
Okay, any other comments or questions, discussion? I just want to thank the board for putting the time into this. I know there was a lot of deliberation, and I know Christy put a lot of time into doing a rough draft, and we did a survey and all that, so appreciate the time.
I also appreciate that we're trying to model exactly what we're asking students to do, which is not model it here.
Harris,
Yes.
Heisner,
Yes.
Gelding.
Yeah.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes,
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next we'll go to employee services.
I'll ask that you table this. An offer was made, but nothing accepted at this point in time, so I have no recommendations to bring forward for an instructional assistant. We'll be reposting the position and on weekend and try to get it in the newspaper and anywhere else we can. I don't have any candidates to bring forward at this time.
We still have 2 job openings, right?
Yeah, and I actually, during the meeting, posted, there's a full-time position, 36 hours a week, and then a part-time position. 22 hours. Those are posted as a.
You recommend we table that to the January regular meeting? Or
Yes, yeah, I mean, we continue to do whatever we can to find the staff to help us out. So yes, I would say let's table it till January.
okay.
And hopefully we can bring something up at that time.
Okay, and just procedural note, I mean, if we vote to table it to January, but let's say you find 2 hires and you want to have a special meeting to approve those hires, that would not be a problem if we tabled this. What's that?
Yeah.
Right, I mean,
Table it
that'd be a really
till
good
our
problem
next
to have,
meeting.
but it wouldn't be a problem if we said, we're gonna talk about this January meeting, but we'll have a special.
I think
You could supersede that.
you could circumvent that by saying, I want to table this to our next meeting. So if we do find 2 and have a special meeting, that gets you that opportunity.
I hope you call a special.
Okay, I'll take a motion to table this until our next meeting, the approval of the elementary instructional assistant positions.
So moved.
Take a
Second,
second,
sorry.
anyone? Okay, Heisner, Bergstrom, any other comments on that? All right, go ahead. Megan.
Heisner,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
yes,
Harris.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we do not need a closed session. We're not discussing any hires. Next regular meeting is January 8th.
Back at the normal time, 6 p.m.
Normal time, 6 p.m. So we'll just tentative agenda for that. We'll review any candidates for the school board. We'll do open enrollment
Yes,
limits.
yes. Sorry, I didn't get that put on there.
That's
Apologize for
okay.
that.
I think we'll review, there'll be a chance to review the WASB resolutions before the state convention.
Yes. Yeah, you
Who's our
could-
WASB delegate this year? All right, William.
Mhm.
Are we
SEL team would like to bring an update after down they kind of January.
SEL team?
People services will have a SEL update
Okay.
for your board priority 2.
Awesome. Is this, with January, would we approve, Fund 46 projects for the summer, or would that be too soon?
That might be too soon.
Okay,
And we could start, if we are able to get estimates or bids we could start to bring them, especially if they address any of those top 5, we can bring them when we get them, but it might be a little soon, but yes, we'd like to try to get some things you gotta get scheduled as soon as you can.
Mhm. And then, shoot, what was I gonna say?
The second readings of policies.
Readings of policies. The audit
Yeah,
review.
Johnson and Block was not able to be here tonight,
Oh,
so
we'll probably review a, summary of our food service plan options.
yeah.
Sounds like a 4-hour meeting.
With a hard stop at 6:35.
And we also need to do a mid-year evaluation.
Yeah, so typically January's meeting would do a mid-year superintendent. Yeah. Running into holiday break. Let me think about how we're gonna do that. Sometimes we send out the evaluation form ahead of time. And we, I know we had talked about maybe using something different or amending it in the process in some way.
Thinking, Dr. Hunter was gonna.
No, we attended at the state school board commission, I think, about evaluating superintendents. I think there was a service and it was like relatively.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
$500 or
Right.
something.
Of your notes.
Your WASB, yeah, okay,
Might be hard to do it this time around.
yeah.
A mid-year doesn't need to be summative either.
No, it doesn't need to be pretty bad, so it can be
Can be a
a little
closed
bit
session.
informal. Yeah, closed session. And then I'm gonna try to get scheduled our first meeting with the staff representatives. I'm looking at the doodle poll. Will, you use 2 different emails to fill it out?
Well, I might have, I filled out the first time, maybe with one, and then I used a different one for the second time. So now when we
Okay, I
couldn't
would
find-
forgive that if your votes were exactly the same, but they were.
Well, my time's changed since the first time
Okay,
we sent it
so
out.
which email?
I don't know, I have to
Would
look.
you use the Gmail or
We can do
the,
this after the meeting.
okay, fine, yeah. Okay, so we need to
Yeah.
sort that out.
Okay.
We need to talk more about the agenda though,
The
What-
agenda?
the,
Oh, yes.
the objectives. I
Yeah,
mean,
so I wanted to just say that I have the doodle poll pretty much done once we Will's dates figured out.
During the meeting.
During the meeting and talk about
None
it.
of these topics are part of this agenda.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. All right, we'll talk about it offline.
Right.
I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Harris Skelding, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay,